Right. Today I'm going to share with you a little framework that I use. It's called the Feels Framework in order to see the temperature and what's happening in the world. And I believe that all of us should be a futurist. And by being a futurist, it's to really understand what's happening in the world. So in order to predict, anticipate, and rehearse the future, we need to have little exercises that we can practice in order to build our future fit muscle. So this is typically how I would do it. I would start with a headline. Go beyond the headline. Do you know that most headlines, people only read the 5-6 words in the headline? I would say 80% of people read only the headline and never the context. Only 20% of people would read the context beyond that headline. Now, this is a huge problem because this is where misinformation happens, and sometimes that is also leading to how you make decisions. And if we all start thinking like futurists, we have to be informed, we have to understand context, because if we understand context, we can make the right decisions. So to keep up with today and to keep up what's happening on the world, it is important always to go beyond the headline. So say, for example, the headline reads, "We need to protect our kids' safety online. Kids under the age of 16 are banned on social media." Now that's a real story that's really happening. And so how do we go beyond that? We can read that headline and think it's everywhere. It's all over the world. Or, it's contradicting, doesn't make sense. Maybe it's going to happen in the past. And we can make assumptions about that headline, but actually we don't really know what's going on. So this is what I recommend. Where most people stop at the headline, you go beyond, because that's where Foresight lives. What if I told you that if you really want to understand what's happening in the world and you really want to understand the trends that are emerging, is that you should actually always go and be like an investigator, like a Sherlock Holmes, diving into your social media platforms, into research studies, and go and read up on it so that you can inform yourself, because when you're informed, you can make better decisions. Okay, so the next thing that I would do is, this is the headline. What is the predominant hashtags? Usually when you read a news article, you would see at the bottom that they would have recommended hashtags. Use those hashtags to start with and see what others you are being introduced to when you're going through social media. Start with the platforms that you're familiar with, for example, Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn. And then you'll go in and just put in your search bar the hashtag. And then you start looking at what content creators are saying, how they're saying it, what they're talking about. But then you go into the battlefield. And the battlefield is always looking what's happening in the comment sections and see how people are responding and how they are participating in the conversation. Now, it's not always easy to be in the comment section. It can be a little bit triggering. Sometimes people can have very negative things to say, and it can come across toxic. But what you need to do is to understand that as a critical thinker, and to build your future fit muscle, you need to be able to hold polarity and hold the good and the bad. And that helps to also develop your diplomacy skills and helps you to develop your emotional intelligence skills. So yeah, it's all around. There's so many skills that you are developing when you are doing this. Now, I would like to say, this is something that you can do daily for 10 minutes, and it doesn't need to be a hectic exercise. But the more you do it, the more confident you become, the more you start actually leaning into it, and you will be surprised how much it serves you when you are in conversations, when you can provide more context, when you can understand the world better, and you will see how it even shapes up and how you make decisions in your work life and your day-to-day. So I like to use the Feels framework. So when we work with our clients to understand cultural shifts around their products and services, and even around the trends and things that are happening for their clients and customers, we always start by checking what is the pulse before we can even situate it, etc. And this is for me always the exercise that I love doing. It's just, I don't need to be right, I don't need to be wrong. What I need to know is there meat there? Is there something we can do with this? Is there something we can expand on? And is this something that is for real, or is it just a facade? Because in most cases, you must also remember there's a thing called trend debris, or I call it trend debris, where organizations say something is a trend because they're trying to sell their product or they want their clients to think it's a trend, but it really isn't. And what you want to do is to be able to discern if this is a real trend or not, and if it deserves your attention. And if it doesn't deserve your attention, put it aside and move along. So here is the feels framework. The first letter of feels is F, which is about feelings and feeling. What emotion is dominating? What are people feeling and feeling about this particular headline? The next one is E, which is all about escape. What would be the opposite emotion? Now listen to that. What would be the opposite emotional state that people will be seeking to escape this dominating emotion? And we'll go through examples shortly. The next E in feels is expression. And how do people show up with words and behaviors because of these feelings or the lack of and what they're trying to achieve? The next one is L, which is legitimate. Is there evidence that this is scaling? Is this a real trend, or is this just a facade? And the next one in the feels framework is shift, is what changes are happening, and what could potentially happen in the future, in a year from now, 2 or 3 years from now, 5 years from now. So let's look at the first letter feel in this example of should we be paying more attention to kids' safety online, kids under the age of 16 years old being banned. Right, we've got that headline. Now let's use a feels framework. The first letter is feels. What emotion is dominating in this particular conversation? So I went to go and have a quick look, and this is the emotions that are surfacing in the comment sections, and it is fear, child safety around the predators online, the loss of control, and parents not feeling that they can protect their children. Then we've got anger towards government, and also a lot of people blaming the parents. Now, the next emotion is anxiety. So technology moving faster than regulation, that is making consumers anxious, together with the emotion of angry and fearful. Now, when you look at the other emotions, you've got distrust towards the platforms, and also the policymakers and the institutions and the tech companies. So when you look at all of these emotions, fear, anger, anxiety, and distrust, this insight is telling us that this is not just about children. It's about a loss of agency. People feel like they don't have control over this particular situation. Put that aside. Next one is escape. So what is the opposite emotional state that people are seeking? And it's clear. They want safety. They want their kids to be safe online. They want to have control over it. They want to have certainty that it's taken care of and that the powers that be are doing the necessary. And they want to have peace of mind. So if you look at all of that hopeful emotional states that they want to achieve, or what they would like to see in the future, this is important because parents don't want more rules. They want reassurance that their children are protected without constant vigilance. So there are those two conflicting emotions of what they want as an outcome, together with what they are feeling, is really important, because this is something that you can then further dive into if you wish to explore it further. But then the next thing is looking at expression. How are they expressing themselves with words? What are they saying? What behavioral patterns are emerging? For example, this isn't government's job, or this is government's job. Both of them exist. Parents should be parenting. Social media is dangerous. This is just the beginning. Those are the conversations that are really dominating in these comment sections. So what this is telling us is that parents are seeking alternative platforms, increase interest in parental control tools. They are also potentially looking at, how to follow creators that are speaking more positively about safe content and positioning and trying to find solutions. This is potentially also the direction that these behaviors would lead to, because people are frustrated. They feel social media is dangerous, so they are going to seek the answers somewhere else. And this puts you in a position to say, okay, right, if I was in the comment section and I was contributing to this conversation, where would I go next? And this really helps you to expand your curiosity, because, you know, curiosity is really the thing that you need in these days. Right, so we've covered the F, the E, and the E, and now we're in the L, which is legitimate. So this is this really true? Is this really happening? Is this scaling? And is the evidence that we can find that say that this is something that we should be paying attention to? And the first one is, yes, for sure, it is a conversation happening. Multiple countries discussing or piloting similar bans. And yes, our ministry is even talking about potential legislation, platform policy changes around the age verification. So there is already the action being taken in these countries like Australia, growing creator content on digital safety and kids online. And also the platforms are paying more attention to it as to how they can overcome this to create more safety. But this is going to be a long road ahead. But there is definitely pulses of information that is telling us that this is something to pay attention to, and how this could impact us as a business, as a brand, and as a parent. Rising searches for dumb phones for kids. That's also telling you that parents are preparing screen-free childhood. So this is just a glimpse into what goes on, but it gives you an idea as to see if this is legit and if this is real. Now the next one is the S, which is shift. What is changing over time? And when we look at this, you know, from a 1-year perspective, I think that we're going to see a lot more stricter age verification. I think more countries are going to get on board. Obviously, writing legislation, this took a long period of time for Australia. It was the first country to ban that children under the age of 16 can access social media. And fun fact is that the tech companies are actually responsible for it. And more importantly is that it's not the parents that will be responsible. And if children are exposed, that there is a fine to be paid. So this evolution will obviously be observed from the sidelines, and definitely will be even improved. I believe, knowing South Africa, we're very good at legislation. If we do decide to embark on this journey, I do believe that we will have quite a rigid policy in place if that should happen. But look, we are just playing around with scenarios and seeing what could this be. I call it scenario playing. Let's look at 2 to 3 years. What could this look like? This could mean that there might be a massive fragmentation of social media platforms by age, where the social media ages are growing up with social media. Now, from 0 to 16 years old, the more prevalent this becomes, less kids are being conditioned to use social media and actually building things, not consuming, but actually creating. And that could actually create so much innovation and a very different innovative perspective, where I'm seeing, for example, AI programs, and where kids are learning to actually work with the technology, but not there to consume all the time, but actually participating in the creation and the innovation perspective. That could happen. But yeah, also from a marketing perspective, brand perspective, reaching out to the younger generation is going to become more challenging, and finding new ways of resonating with younger generations when they haven't been on social media. And for the past 10, 15 years, everything has moved swiftly towards digital, and 70% of online spending on advertising is spent online. So we might see huge behavioral shifts in the younger generations. And then if we just look at the 5 years, we even might see, how digital freedom is going to be renegotiated, not necessarily be rejected, but rested. We might see an adoption of many people going, hang on, I can see the change in my children not being on social media. Let me adopt as well. And this could lead even more to this revolution of analog renaissance. So this could also be very interesting. And by the way, analog renaissance is one of the big trends that we are following within our new Renaissance Signal Vault. And there is huge things happening there, and more than happy to chat to you if you want to learn more about the trends that we are seeing there. But overall, what I'm seeing here is that it's not only a future where children's access to digital spaces may be more controlled, but a broader shift in how digital freedom itself is structured. So all you have to do is use the fields framework, use it, rinse and repeat, keep on doing it, and it will start becoming very natural to you. And then you can start jotting it down and start seeing if you can actually identify the patterns. Here is why this matters, because it's going to help you to become a better critical thinker, more emotional intelligence. You're going to actually have a better way of looking at problem solving, making better decisions, and where you buy from, who you're buying from, why you're buying from certain organizations. And also it's going to help you to make better decisions at work. It's going to help you to think more critically and to think out of the box, because you're building your neuron network, neural pathways, and thinking critically about challenges that are in our world. And it might open up a can of worms for you, and you just go, oh my word, this is so interesting. And once you go down that rabbit hole, a whole new world opens up to you. And this is always why I think that identifying trends, staying on top of what's happening in the world, and having enough context to understand something better is always going to make you a better decision maker for our future. Remember, the future doesn't happen to you, but you happen to the future. So every decision you're making, the self-governance, all of those things are so vital in order for you to become an army of critical thinkers. Now, I hope this helped, and if this sparked your thinking, if you are interested to learn more about our trend vaults and all the various things that we are monitoring, or you would like to book me for a keynote, I have a keynote specifically on this, why every leader should become a futurist. Please reach out and connect. Thank you so much.